Welcome back. Today we have some very special guests with us today. We have AB.
Hey, girl.
Hey, I know some of y'all may know her on social media as I Am Legally Hype. And we also have Ian James with us. He's an actor and an activist.
Thank you so much for having me, Jhone.
Absolutely. Thank you both for the work that you've been doing on your social media platforms and in your community to bring our generation into politics. Now today, we want to get into some things. We're reviewing some of the election results from the midterm elections, and it is not the red wave that was predicted by so many people. However, Stacey Abrams did lose the governor race in Georgia to Brian Kemp, as well as Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. They have to see each other in a Senate runoff in December. Why do y'all think that Herschel Walker got so many votes?
Honestly, in my opinion, I think it was because Brian Kemp was on the ballot. So I think the same thing kind of happened in Georgia with those votes, is that they were like, I'm sticking with the Republicans, and that's just what it is.
What about you, Ian? Do you have any insight or thoughts that why you think Herschel Walker even made it this far?
I know that Trump had him on a committee for sports and nutrition when Trump was in office. So I think it's a combination of he's charismatic, he's probably connects with people very well, and he's Republican, and a combination of what you said, that they really just kind of focus on party affiliation and not necessarily what the actual matters at hand may be.
Absolutely. I think his endorsement by Trump definitely has something to do with the popularity that he's gaining, because Trump supporters, baby, you would be surprised. And they have a lot of people backing them. So once Trump goes in and says that he's endorsing a candidate, they tend to get all of his supporters as well. So I definitely think, and the fact that he's a Hall of Fame athlete, I think that also has something to do with it. But, I hope that things can work out in the Democratic favor when they go to this runoff.
Absolutely.
What do you guys think about Stacey Abrams? This is her second time running for governor, and unfortunately, her second loss. They said that she lost more this midterm election than in 2018. Do you guys feel like she's getting black people to show up and vote for her?
I think Stacey Abrams really is kind of this example of what people can aspire to be in modern day politics. There was the whole debacle with Kemp. 1.4 million voter registrations were lost between 2007 and 2018 during that, and I think that all things considered, she has time and again kind of not reinvented the way she goes about bettering the system, but she's relentless and she doesn't give up, and I have to admire that. Winner or not, she's fighting for something, and I think that's what politics is kind of really about. It's like, what do you believe in and how much are you willing to fight for it?
I agree, and I know that she definitely has gotten more people registered to vote and involved in politics since she started campaigning back for the 2018 race. What do you think, AB?
I think that some of it has to do with SB 202, right? Where the redistricting laws in Georgia have changed. What is required to be able to vote in Georgia has changed. I think there's a lot that goes into it. In terms of that. In addition, what I think is that black people did show up, right? You do see they showed up early. Majority of the voters showed up early. This was record-breaking early voting in Georgia. And we saw black men vote too, right? What we were missing was 20%, right? We're missing 20% black men, 20% black women. But when you look at what has happened between 2018 and now, right, where people were being arrested for voting, right, and they thought they were eligible to vote, and that wasn't the case. That was in Florida, right? But I think that trickles down to the South. In addition to that, what I would say is that you have this voter challenge, right? So I think, and Kemp made this point of we've seen more black people come out and vote than we've seen before, but the reality is, but where were those votes cut, right? So in Georgia, you are allowed to challenge a vote. Any citizen can challenge a vote if they feel like it's questionable. So how many of those votes were challenged? How many were challenged in African American neighborhoods, right? In addition to the gerrymandering that has happened.
Earlier when we were getting into some things, we mentioned how in the governor race in Arizona, right? Katie Hobbs is getting some backlash because she is the current Secretary of State. And Carrie Lake has already said several times that she is not going to concede. There's no way she's going to lose. Basically, they're recounting votes and they're redoing it if she takes a loss. And they're doing that because Katie Hobbs is the current Secretary of State. You mentioned earlier, well, Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State in the 2018 election, right? So I just want you guys to touch base on kind of like what's going on in Arizona. They still haven't called it. They said that they're still going to be counting, but all this backlash that the state is getting because they're still counting.
I think that especially when people are in positions of power, like the Secretary of State, it not only influences the people around them to make decisions and contributions to help, if it's a recount or if it's whatever their desires or wishes are. When you have that kind of political power behind it, more walls or less walls stand in your way of getting things done. So I think that's definitely a factor with that.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, Katie Hobbs has been very open about, yes, I know I'm the Secretary of the State, but we have a plan. But Carrie Lake, she is a TV personality. She knows how to work a crowd. She knows how to get the base riled up. And the reality is that she is an avid Trump supporter. But what we saw is a lot of people who were down with Trump's, conspiracy about the election was stolen, they lost the election, right? They didn't get as much support in the larger, in the areas where they really counted.
Right.
So we have to take that into consideration and not think that voters are not smart enough to see like, okay, you're playing a game when this is my life. Right, so I think that's where that comes in. I don't see a conflict of interest, again, because they've discussed this. They knew this was going to happen, right? We knew this was going to be an issue, and you knew what population of individuals you were coming up against with that being a factor. So at the end of the day, sorry, Carrie Lake, but it's over with.
That is so funny. It's over with. It's over with. Yeah, no. She is an avid, she definitely, still to this day, denies the 2020 election, which is ridiculous to me. And at the same time, it's like she's so far right that, I don't know if you guys knew, but the Democratic Party actually, in a way, supported her because they thought she would be the easier candidate for Katie Hobbs to defeat.
Oh, look how it's working out.
And look how that's why I'm saying, politicians and these political games, stop playing them. Like you just said, this is our life. To put somebody up to bat with Katie Hobbs just because you think that she's the easier candidate to beat, that's not gonna cut it when it comes to what's really at stake.
No, I agree. And at the same time, I think, taking into consideration the fact that the Republican Party put almost $10 million behind her, right? So she is going to give them their money's worth. So I think the Republican Party needs to be a lot smarter about the candidates that they choose, especially when you're putting them up against valuable Democratic candidates.
Genzo.
All right, we're back, and I want to pick it back up where AB left off with the Republican Party, today's Republican Party. Now, Ron DeSantis won almost in every county in Florida, right? That's probably the red wave that they were talking about.
Bloodbath, right?
The bloodbath, the Red Sea.
Little Trump said, little Trump, that's a bloodbath.
The media pundits are saying that Florida voters, the tactics that they voted on regarding critical race theory, the LGBTQ rights, and COVID, like how Florida basically wasn't shut down the entire time. They're saying that these views that the Florida voters have are now the modern day conservative or Republican. That's also what they view. And they feel like the majority of Americans have this belief system that Florida voters have. Do you guys agree with that?
I think that the issues in Florida are not as specific and as wide encompassing as the issues that are facing the entirety of the American people today. I think there are different economic systems. Florida is a completely different economic blueprint than like New York or California. We were talking earlier about how housing rates in Florida and Texas are 1/3 of what they are in New York and California. New York and California are liberal, democratically run states. So the problems and the money being put towards to solve some of these problems by not only the government but the state officials and the city officials, it's not on the same level or threshold as some of the other states in the country. So I don't think it's fair to compare one state's problems to that. But however, I do think that there is this growing sense of pride in the Republican Party of that the issues that they are caring about and discussing, they believe are these issues that the United States is really dealing with. I don't think it is, though.
I think a lot of like the CRT and dealing with the LGBTQ issues in Florida are TV talking points, right? You got to think he got a huge Latino backing in Florida, right? Like they came out in massive groves and voted for him. And I think what we have to realize is like sometimes when you like somebody, even the stuff that they do wrong, it's easy to be like, okay, well I don't agree with that part, but the other stuff you did is cool. Like, you know, like I'm cool with that. And so I think taking that into consideration as well, I think all those extra talking points were just to bring in that base to get that support, because those are a few, I won't say outliers, right? But they are marketing to them, right? Like Republicans are great at marketing, if nothing else. They're business people.
Yeah, they are.
So, right?
Yeah.
So they know how to market. I think in some aspects, a lot of Florida residents also believe that Ron DeSantis is a good governor, and maybe they're also used to what their governance looks like in Florida. In addition to that, we also have to look at a lot of the games he played, right before the election. So you think about he went toe-to-toe with Disney, right? Then he went and said, oh, well, we found people who voted illegally, right? And people don't look at the context of it all. They see the headline or they see the quote and they buy into it, and the psychology of people, right? Like a lot of people are not really free thinkers as we would like to believe,
Exactly.
right? They love to run with the crowd. And so I think those marketing talking points is what got the people out to vote for him. We also, again, have to look at how they redistrict in Florida, right?
Yeah.
And kind of the attempts at that as well. So I don't think, and Florida has never really been what the entire United States thinks of, right?
The voice of the American people.
I was gonna say, like, if you could take it back
Since
to
when?
like I was gonna say, right?
Since when? Type in Google Florida man, and you see what comes up. Like,
I mean, when you think about it, like came to what was it, Bush v. Gore, right?
yes. Oh my gosh.
Florida is
that
always,
was the first like election fraud. Like,
and that's what I'm saying. Florida is always that state that plays games, right? Like they figure out a way to like make it fit their stance and what they want, and so they are continuing that reputation today. It's some in the sauce out there in Florida, absolutely.
I think Florida has the unique position of being the top of the heap when it comes to Republican strongholds.
Absolutely.
I think DeSantis, throughout his tenure, like accustomed and built himself this reputation of being not only the anti-Trump, the Trump that people is not saying these loud, ludicrous things, but is still doing ludicrous things or ambitious things for the Republican Party in pursuit of that agenda. But he's a little bit more quieter, a little bit more smarter about it.
exactly.
You know?
Absolutely.
Definitely, he's not being as offensive. Trump just
He is still being offensive. He is still absolutely
right.
being
He just
offensive.
flew 50 migrants to
He
Martha
just put a
Vineyard.
little whipped cream
He
on
did that
that
to one up Greg Abbott because they're trying to, they're guarding for support.
Absolutely. So I definitely think that despite him just committing himself to another 4 years as governor, I believe that Ron DeSantis is going to try to run for president in 2024.
Absolutely.
You think a woman can go against DeSantis?
I would love to see a woman against DeSantis. I don't think that we are not ready for a woman president yet. I think, especially in the modern day when you've got people overturning Roe v. Wade, like this is the time for women to stand up for themselves and rally behind other women in support of moving forward and not back. I think that we spent so much time in that period where women were just considered like objects or property or that they didn't have the same human rights as other people, and the fact that it took us this long to get out of that and now there's still people trying to pull us back, I think it's just one of the biggest crimes against humanity. In modern times.
I agree.
Would you support Vice President Kamala Harris?
I don't know if I would support her because I don't know, I can't say for certain that I believe she has the capabilities to take the reins and be able to lead in a way that I haven't seen her do up to now.
Absolutely.
On the Kamala part, she VP, right? So we didn't really see Biden when he was VP either, right? They pop in, pop out when they needed help. That's what they do. In terms of Democratic candidates, I would say, honestly, like if I had it my way, probably Stacey Abrams. I think she could definitely go toe to toe with DeSantis, right? They're gonna have to give her a little more harder, but I think she could totally do that. I could see Gavin Newsom running.
I can see
Yeah, I think he could do it because he already playing the game. Like Democrats, let's get it together. We need a stronger talking point. But I also think if Biden were to run again, although it seems like people don't really like him. I think we have to remember all the things that Biden has accomplished in these last 2 years, more than we have seen in maybe a 10-year span. The man is 79 years old as well. So with that being said, I think any of those three candidates could go toe-to-toe with DeSantis.
And I think that we won't see the complete fruition of everything Biden has done in these 2 years until like 3 more years from
Absolutely.
now. Like it's always the next cycle of president that sees the fruits of the president before him.
Exactly.
Or the poison.
Absolutely, and we got
Trump was vindicating Obama over like all of these things he had done up until that point. But the problem was it was actually really good, and the economy got better under Trump because of some of the stuff that Obama did in his presidency.
It went down
Exactly.
towards the end of Trump's presidency.
Well, that's the thing, and I didn't want to kind of talk about this, but we're here, so let's talk about it. Midterm elections are about your local elections. It's not necessarily about what President Biden is doing and his efforts and his progress. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think that was a strong talking point for Democrats because one, what we saw is increase in numbers of women turning Republican, right? Running under Republican tickets and also voting as Republicans. So of course, talking about women's rights was like really important. I think the other part about that is that when you think about conservatives in the Republican Party, they are business people. They are concerned about their finances and their money, right? And that is going to be a talking point. And when you think about the LGBTQ community as well, right? You don't want to lose that base by not talking about them, by leaving them out and leaving outliers, right? You don't want to leave anything on the table, especially in an election as contentious as this. And so it's not just the president, right? It is your legislators that stop this. It is your governor who makes the decisions on who can vote, when you can vote, right? What your taxes look like in your state, right? Can you go outside? It's not the president. They want to blame Biden like, oh, all his bad policies. He is putting money in the pockets of the American people. He is spending, but he is spending on us so that we can start spending within our states and in our communities and things like that again. So I think we just need to take all that into consideration when it comes to voting in the midterm and looking at the different talking points and why they're kind of structured the way they are.
Absolutely.
Exactly. On the subject of Republican and women's reproductive rights, I think it's the greatest hypocrisy of the Republican Party. It is, for 50 years, they pandered to evangelists and the religious community in support of, we don't support abortion, it is the health of the baby that is the most important thing, disregard the health of the woman, right? These politicians and senators and people in the government have daughters. They have kids. Their daughters are coming into these situations of needing help, needing people to and it was always, oh, we're rich, we can go fly to another state that we are not overseeing and making the laws of to get our daughters the abortion in secrecy and go back.
Exactly.
But now,
Or your side chick.
or yes, okay, yeah.
Herschel Walker.
Daddy Herschel.
Let's just throw it out there. Let's
Baby
just
daddy
throw it
Herschel.
out there. Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I like the point that you're taking with this. And you know, Ian, I know you from Texas. I know you was
Yes,
born and
sir.
raised there.
Yes, sir.
But since we on this topic, let's go ahead and mess with Texas. How do you feel? Greg Abbott is still going to be your governor. How does that make you feel? I know that Greg Abbott, long before the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, he was trying to come after the women's right to choose, amongst many other things. But how do you feel as someone from Texas?
I am proud to be from Houston, Texas, because Houston is one of the most diverse cities in America. And it provided me with an upbringing of many different communities, many different religions, races, cultures, things I never would have experienced anywhere else. And I thank the stars for that, because I wouldn't be the man I am today if I didn't meet those people. I'm saddened, but not surprised that Abbott is still in power. We touched upon DeSantis earlier. Abbott is probably the most recognizable name, aside from DeSantis, in Republican politics today. If there was anybody else other than DeSantis who was going to run for president on the Republican ticket, it would be Abbott. Abbott has the luxury of being governor of a state where I'm not sure if this is the exact percentage, but I would say 75% of Texas is rural, and 25% of these metropolitan urban cities. And these rural counties are diehard Republicans, and it's a lot like what you were saying about Georgia, how they vote politically. They don't care necessarily or fritter over the matters at hand on the ticket, on the table, on whatever. They will vote strictly Republican because it is their right and is their pride and is their heritage to do so. My dad was voting yesterday, and he was in line at the voting office, and he overheard this young woman who couldn't have been more than probably, he said, like 20 or mid-20s. She was having a conversation with a friend of hers about how her mother called her on the phone to tell her to vote Republican. And she was telling her friend that she felt like she was betraying women if she voted Republican. So she was saying, I can't vote Republican this year, not this year, I can't do it. And I think that really, hopefully, is part of the reason why we didn't see a red wave. It was because they went too far. They went too far, and they alienated so many people who have supported them for decades.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that is the perfect example of what we say with Gen Z voters. You said your dad said she was like mid-20s. That's definitely Generation Z, and that's the thing. We're not necessarily sticking to a party. I'm not sticking Democrat. I'm not sticking Republican. I'm left or right. I'm choosing wrong or right. And so I applaud that you have a firm example of that behavior, but we know that from the polls and the results from the polls that Gen Z voters are the ones that are making a difference in standing up for what is right when it comes to these elections.
Yeah, I think for the younger generation is we have access to more information, right? So one, when it comes to Greg Abbott, SB 101, right? They didn't gerrymander so deep in Texas, it looked like scoliosis. Okay? It's ridiculous. At this point, the only people that could vote is the people in his family, right? Like when you look at how they have like limited the voting ability.
They had a great Republican boost in their redistricting.
When you think about like, yes, it's a woman's reproductive rights, it's her right to choose. It's also when your 16-year-old son get that little girl pregnant, right, and he can't afford to take care of that baby, and now he on child support at 17, and he don't pay, he missed a payment, and now his driver's license is revoked. Now he can't get a passport, right?
Now he can't vote.
Now he can't, right? Those are the things that we're not talking about, right? Now your son in jail because he ain't paid child support. I think those are the issues that we forget about when it comes to like broadening the scope of reproductive rights. And so what we have done is given power to politicians that they don't need and don't have, right? But Republicans, their thought process is that the conservative party is the party of people who are well put together, who are well educated, who are financially stable. And so you are more trusting of people like that. When you look at the Democrats, right, where you see a broad range of them, and they're all shapes and sizes, and they come from different backgrounds, right, and people support them, but there's no linear kind of visual of what a Democrat looks like.
Exactly.
You think hard, white, grown, rich white man, right, when you think of Republicans, and people respect that, right? They respect that class of people. And so I think that's why, like you said, in the rural areas, they on the outside looking in, and they like, oh, y'all don't care about me, y'all don't care about the issues that I have, but they feel supported by the Republican Party because that's all they know.
I definitely agree. I think that solves it for me.
Genzo.
Before we check out, I want you guys to share with the audience, like, why does politics mean so much to you? Why are you guys advocates for politics for our generation?
I think my dad would listen to NPR on the radio every morning that I came home down for breakfast of my life, every single morning. And he always told me, he's like, son, be aware of what's happening in the world because like it or not, it will affect you. Change doesn't happen without you. It happens with all of us. And if you believe in something and you want to make things better for everybody, not just yourself, not just the rich, not just the fortunate, but make things better for everyone, regardless of what they look like, where they come from, what language they speak, what have you. That is the America that I want to be a part of someday. I want to be a part of the America that is equal for everyone, where you ladies don't have to worry about going and getting some help when you guys need help. Everybody needs help sometimes, even rich white men.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though they will never have to make the decision, so they shouldn't have any say over it. But I will say to anybody out there who is thinking about getting into politics, you have the power to make a difference. You really, really do. Don't think for a second that you don't. Your voice matters and it will be heard.
Thank you, Ian. What about you, AB?
Honestly, my life is probably not just my own doing, but it's the choices that I make and the people before me, the choices that they make. So I continue to indulge in it because I want to be an active citizen, right? And like you said earlier, helping the next person. It's not just about me. Change may not happen for 100 years from now, but I want to be a part of that.
That's right.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much.
That's great.
I feel like it's important for us to be involved in politics because history repeats itself. So you don't want to be the outsider. You want to be in the know. You want to know what's going on. You want to be aware so that you can move accordingly. And on the Gen Zone, we'll do just that. We'll keep you awake and aware. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you guys for joining me today. It was wonderful having you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tune into the Gen Zone.